Bursty here with a new episode of Chordplay. This is the Chords of the Hellecasters, and I've had some requests to feature some of their music, and I did just post the John Jorgenson 3-for-all, and in that episode I mentioned I was going to create this, and I love the Hellecasters. They formed in Los Angeles in 1991, and their debut album, The Return of the Hellecasters in 1993, just erupted in popularity, made rounds, in the guitar magazines, and definitely guitarists were just caught off guard by this, trio of twangy, countrified guitarists playing, country rock, country blues, funk. There's rockabilly, there's surf, there's all kinds of stuff hiding in their music. The Hellecasters are amazing. So in the guitar department, you have three legends of the guitar, Jerry Donahue, Will Ray, and John Jorgenson. And all three of those players, collaborated and did session work and, worked with lots of other musicians and groups. But then they came together in the early 90s and released a trio of albums. They've had 3 studio albums and 1 compilation, and they're all great, but I really do love that first album for sure. And stylistically, their styles were very different. Jerry Donahue's very smooth, and these pedal steel, crazy bends and stuff, and this kind of hybrid fingerstyle pick kind of technique. Very melodic. And then Will Ray is like a roller coaster off the tracks. I mean, he's just crazy. Playing slide with his fret hand. He's also got a slide on his pick hand. So he's doing all this just crazy off the rails, slide stuff. Very musical, one of the most interesting guitarists I can think of. And then John Jorgenson, of course, has this strong country rock, sound and influence. Lots of melodic guitar playing and soloing and stuff. And this kind of bridge between countrified and rock, styles, because you'll hear him tap and do all kinds of stuff. Phenomenal band. And their signature models that Fender released back in the 90s were outstanding guitars. I'd love to play, each of these guitars. So I believe I mentioned this in John Jorgenson's 3-for-all that I just posted before this episode, but I have met all 3 of the Hellecasters separately. I met John at Sweetwater, and I bumped into Will and Jerry at summer NAMM shows in Nashville. That was like in the late 90s and early 2000s. And I also wrote an article that was devoted to their signature models that Fender released. And those are such unusual, interesting guitars. But it was for a website that no longer exists that was called FenderRocks.com. And I used the Internet Time Machine or the Wayback Machine to find my article just so I could share an image of it. And John Jorgenson actually piped in on Facebook and added some details. I was really honored to put that article together. So the music and chord-based examples in this episode came from the Hellecasters' first album, The Return of the Hellecasters from 1993. And all of their albums are great, but I just really locked onto that first one because there's lots of great guitar work. And of course, Escape from Hollywood and Access to Grind, those have great guitar work too. But that first album is just magical. You can hear they're super inspired. It was a new group, when they were, cutting that album, and you can just hear it. I mean, there's like this magic just glowing. With the opening, that's Highlander Boogie from the Return of the Hellecasters album, and there's some hybrid picking kind of sneaking in there, and it's a tricky riff, but really cool, like this. Something like that, and it's really tricky. It's crammed in there. So it starts off with this kind of reverse strum on that A power chord, and then you're just smearing that G note on the low E. Like that kind of twang city right there. And then you're hybrid picking this A5 chord riff. Like that. So you're kind of separating the root note, from the fretted part of that A5. And then you've got this kind of snappy open string riff. Like that. So after that little open string riff, you're going to come back down that F sharp to E, and then you're going to climb up the C to C sharp back into the A power chord. Like that. And then you're going to repeat that A riff. And then this is tricky right here, I'm not gonna lie. We're basically racing through and hybrid picking part of G and D, like D over F sharp. But slowly we're doing this. And one more time there, rolling into that G. And then that, B note there on the A string, the open D, open G. So that F sharp to G, B to the open D. And then keep that B to the open D, open G. Then the open D to the F sharp to this A. And then that F sharp A to D right there. And that's just hopelessly crammed in there. And I would just start really slow. And then just slowly. It's a tricky riff. Especially because it's just crammed in there. And then all the way through that, it's like this. Next up is the song Back on Terra Firma, and this has these giant bar chords. A great bar chord workout, like this. Something like that. So B minor bar chord right there, and just strum the heck out of it. And then there's a D major over A right here. Just, play that bar D major chord, but then grab that low A there too. And then switch that D over A to A. And then end on E major. Like that. And then back to that B minor. Next up is the song 5 Minutes to Spare, and my good buddy Shep, actually down in Alabama, played this at his graduation at AIM when we were in school together. But 5 Minutes to Spare, something like this. Part, you're just banging this F sharp, and then you're gonna grab this. It's like a little piece of B over that D sharp right there. So you're grabbing this. It's like B over F sharp, and then you're gonna take that D sharp and move it to E, and that's just a little piece of E5 right there. Right? Like that, and do it again. So you hear this massive, B over F sharp. Just that little E5 at the end, like that. And that main melody comes in. And I love that. Think of F sharp minor pentatonic, and then the A with the open B, open E ringing into itself. Right, kind of double stops in that little melody. And do it again. This is really crafty. It's like this stuttery hybrid picking lick right there. Really cool. So open A, hammer on that B, open D, and then open A, hammer on that D, open D, right? And then go to the D string, hammer on this G, then play the open G, then hammer on the G string to this B, and then play the open B, and then hammer on the B string to this D, and then play the high E. Like that. That's a really cool song, and I love that little hybrid pick. Just stuttering your way all the way through it. So cool. Next up is the song Passion, and this is a John Jorgensen showcase song, or solo, and this is the chord part behind his emotive soloing and lead guitar parts, like this. So it starts with this, and that's an F sharp minor flat 6 right here. You know, very moody and mysterious. Like that, the F sharp and that C sharp, and you're grabbing that A. Also the open D right there. That's your flat 6 too, that open D string. Then that's going to switch to this, and that's an implied E13. Like that, and that D string's still open there. Oddball chord, but I love that kind of switch, you know, between the F sharp minor flat 6, or you can think of that as a flat 13, I guess, and then the E13. And that just goes back and forth a few times, and then you eventually hear this, and that's an A6 implied, like that. And you're going to go back to that E13. Eventually you hear these A add 9 chords, like that. But if you haven't heard Passion before, check that song out, because John is just soaring, and it's so melodic. It's really moving. Great song. Next up is King Arthur's Dream, and this is definitely a Jerry Donahue showcase, and it's this melodic hybrid picked chord workout, and it's very difficult, but it's so cool. It's something like this. Starts with this, and it's the slip and slide weird chord thing, like this. I just screwed that up, like this. That's really weird. That's going to function as a G sharp minor add 9 right there, and you're doing this oddball slide. Because you're moving from this A sharp to that B and then playing the open B. So you got this weird, you know, little slide hiding right there, and that's a handful to stretch. And he's hyper picking there too. I just used my pick, but he's doing, right? And that's going to change to this implied C sharp 13, and you're doing a slide there too. That's really hard. Part happening with that C sharp, you know, 13 implied right there. And you're going to reach over here, which is so weird. That's really weird. Then you're going to hike up here, and you're doing this little maneuver, and that's really weird. That's like an implied G sharp minor over D sharp. That's so weird. Something like that. And then you're going to end with this, and that's like a C sharp minor 7 implied. Right? So really slow. There's a lot happening right there. That's not easy to play at all. That's really weird. There we go. And then he starts doing this. It's really cool, like this F sharp major. And then you basically hear the low E and the B open, right? And then you're going to grab this A sharp and you're going to bend that to B. Like that. And then a B power chord. And then E5 arpeggiated backwards. Like that. That B to E. And then there's that F sharp. I think the second time it goes to G sharp there. Or G sharp minor. But super cool song, and that's a really challenging guitar part, but it's so cool to kind of like drift and shift and weave through those implied chords. You know, really cool. Jerry Donahue is a monster guitarist. Last but not least is the intro to the song Rockin' the Dog, and it has this spacey, kind of dreamy intro part. It's really cool. And it kind of revolves around an F sharp 7 add 11 tonality. Like that. Think of Xanadu by Rush, or maybe Rooster by Alice in Chains, and you'll hear that tonality. So I'm going to loop that sound with the TC Electronic Ditto Looper just to supply that kind of dreamy flavor. And then you're going to hear this intro part, something like this. Something like that. And try it again. There we go. And basically what we're doing there, you know, there's that F sharp 7 add 11. But then we're doing this kind of hybrid picked, it's ringing into itself too. Let all of this ring. Like that. And then you're grabbing, just really tasty like that. And then you're going to come down here and grab a little piece of that F sharp 7 add 11 we played. Like that. So really slow. And let all of that ring into itself. And then you've got this little, and then you distinctly hear them add this part of the chord back, that F sharp 7 add 11, and then they smack a harmonic right there between the 15th and 16th fret. And you hear this overtone if you do it right, like that. Something like that. And then slowly we've got this. And then with that overtone or tonality behind me, and I love dreamy parts like that where it's really cool. And I really like those kind of, you know, cascading droned parts. Alright, that's going to wrap this episode of Chordplay with the Chords of the Hellecasters. And I talk to a lot of guitarists, either they're students or just strangers or people in music stores or whatever. And it definitely seems like there's certain people that remember the Hellecasters from the 90s, but when I talk to certain players these days, they don't even know what I'm talking about. They're like, the Hellecasters, and then I mention names or songs, and they're like, I don't know what that is. So it must just be me, because I latched onto these guys when they were new, and I still love and listen to their music. I mean, it's phenomenal. So anyway, leave some feedback and comments. Please subscribe to Melodic Lessons, and I'll be back before you know with more content and material. Thank you.